Okay, before we even get into this, so, hey everyone, this is episode 8 now. 8
Episode
weeks.
8.
Wow.
Hey. Well,
I don't know how many listeners
I wouldn't say
we've got.
8 weeks. We kind of skipped
Yeah, we
a
did
week
skip
and a
a
half with break there, but
Yeah. I don't know how
Just
many people we have
technically.
listening, but we've been doing it. This is fun though for us.
probably
and
zero.
Probably, we got 5 or 6 on each one. A couple
think-
of that is probably us, but
and then our parents.
yeah.
Hi, Mom. All right. So, I want to start this off with a bold statement. AWOL Nation, one of my favorite artists. I'm saying it. He is one of the most incredible musicians in the modern pop era
In terms
ever.
of songwriting or just
In terms of songwriting, just the creation of new music. He has something fresh all the time. And it just seems that people rip from his ideas. And I'm gonna do some research and actually get some factual evidence on this, because I know it's not something that people have picked up on quite yet. But AWOL Nation, he is the best. Go check him out. And not the song "Sail." That's his worst song.
it's the most one of the most popular.
It's the most popular song, and then he doesn't have a huge fan base. But dude, are we gonna show the examples between?
Yeah, so basically what got this conversation started, and this kind of ties into what we were talking about last week. Joe came up to my house, we got our coffee, and he goes, dude, I've been listening to AWOL Nation, and I think Taylor Swift used some of his ideas.
Now, again, Taylor Swift is showing up on this podcast again.
Yet
But
again.
when you're very popular, this is gonna happen. Now, this is kind of the fine line, I think. I mean, this one's, she gets away with it pretty cleanly, I would say. As far as copyright goes.
What song was
that? Which one are you on? Are you on Taylor?
89. Yeah.
So that was Bad Blood. So this is like one of
yeah.
her biggest hits from that.
Yeah. Everyone knows the song.
Right. It was huge. So really just listen to the rhythm pattern and like the kind of bass line and the drum, kick drum.
And even the phrasing, the
Right,
organization of the lyrics, and the beat.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got the idea. Now we're gonna go to AWOL Nation's Windows, and it's on Run.
It's right here.
Windows. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Very similar beat, phrasing style.
Right.
It's not that apparent. It's not like very obvious.
Right. It's not stealing, but the ideas are very, very similar.
Right.
And I can't find the connection between them, because they kind of came out near the same time. Because Taylor Swift was like 2014, maybe. I don't know when Run came out. 2015. But when did that? But either way,
Oh yeah, you're right. October of 14.
October 14. But who knows? With writing processes, it takes forever to actually get the album out. So who knows
Right.
what was written first? I'm pretty sure AWOL Nation wrote it first, because his ideas are crazy.
Well,
and they're very new the first time you hear them.
Yeah.
And I do remember that song came out first, because I heard that, and then I heard Taylor Swift's song when it hit the radio, and
Yep.
I was like, that's the same exact thing as Windows there.
Right.
Anyway, this is kind of a way that you can get away with any sort of copyright issues. You can take ideas. Nothing is totally new. You
Right.
have to find inspiration somewhere. So, I mean, this was a clean example of pretty much. I mean, that is like the threshold of like taking an idea and not totally stealing from the artist.
Well,
you
yeah,
know?
we were talking about this a little bit. Music is obviously super subjective, and it's hard to put like clean cut rules on what is stealing and what isn't. Like, what's the limit of, well, this is my song, now you owe me royalties for using that portion of the song or whatever.
Right.
Obviously, there's like, clearly, if you cut and paste a section out of someone's song and use it in your own, that's stealing. But if like, you know, you use a similar theme or phrase or idea, even,
Right.
you know,
And-
what's the limit? And
right. So the thing that I just wanted to interject on it is just that it's not bad. It is bad to deliberately steal someone's song and
Yes.
basically use it as your own,
yes,
right?
Mhm.
If you know that going into it, find a way to make it different. Find a way to make it your own song.
Yep.
It's totally fine to be inspired by someone and apply those ideas to your own. I mean, I hope that kind of makes sense that the intent isn't to steal someone's song.
right,
Or a lot of people, and this is more an issue in like the comedy scene, is they don't realize where they heard someone's joke from.
Yep.
And they think that they came up with it later, and then they use it, and then they didn't realize that it was just the wrong intention. They don't know where that idea came from, and that's just how the mind works. You take in all this information, and then it gets stored back there. You don't recall the source material or
Right.
anything like that, and then you reapply it later. Hopefully, that when that happens, it isn't
Right.
the exact same thing. You've
Right.
kind of melded that into a bunch of different ideas, and then
But-
you come up with a new
but-
song.
it's been very well established that, like, for example, that reminds me of jazz players. That's how you get good at improvisation, is
Right.
you actually steal, you like copy other people's
Isn't that what
lines.
what Doc was saying back
Yeah.
when we were in school? He was like, "There's only like a handful of jazz players who actually did their own thing,
Right.
right?
So,
and then everyone else is kind of just reiterations
but
of
it's
or combinations of those people."
but like if you're playing on a record or live, and then you do like a little lick from Louis Armstrong or from Miles Davis or whatever, that's not considered copyright infringement.
Right.
So
So let's play
So-
an example of some real heavy cases on deliberately stealing music.
well, deliberately stealing?
Do the Zeppelin one.
Oh, okay. So
Dude,
this was
I
ruled
think
to not be considered stealing. All right. So something we mentioned
which I
earlier,
believe is very controversial.
yeah, is that Led Zeppelin was sued by this band, Spirit, for they felt that Led Zeppelin totally ripped off the main melody line from Stairway to Heaven, which that's a pretty big claim. Stairway to Heaven is considered like the greatest song ever written, or greatest rock song ever written, anyway. And what Spirit said was, look, we were touring with Led Zeppelin when this song came out, so they had the ability to hear or to be a part of our songwriting process. So they were in the same vicinity as us, and this song sounds very, very similar. So take a listen to
Just take a listen to this
back to
track
back.
here.
Right.
Is this from a live set? Or is this the
No, this is
recording
the
here?
actual track.
Okay.
So this is this first one.
Hold on. Yeah. And now, 2 years later, so right, it's crazy. that
Pretty darn close.
It's pretty close. Now, why was that ruled in Led Zeppelin's favor.
Yeah, we're reading.
Because anyone listening to that would be like, yeah, it's the same thing.
Let's see.
And then the problem is that, because in my opinion, with my knowledge in copyright infringement, is that, what's the band? Taurus?
No,
No,
Spirit.
Spirit. The song was Taurus.
Yep.
So Spirit was playing with Led Zeppelin, touring with them at the time that they were performing their song Taurus, which is the one that is very similar to Stairway. So they had them. Like, they were there when the song was being performed. Clearly, they had heard the song before, and then, and then it's almost like it's hard to rule in the motion that it's like, I heard that idea, and then I didn't realize where it came from. But it's like, even the strumming pattern is exactly the same. It's crazy how similar it is. And the whole cadence to the phrasing. Do they have any real reason of winning that?
I'm looking.
We probably should
So
read
basically-
it ahead of time.
Hold on. I'm still reading. I probably should have read this before we started. Basically, what Led Zeppelin said is that they had never heard the song that Spirit wrote until 2014.
Oh, you know what I think they did? Is they found more examples with the same kind of phrasing. With the descending chord.
What I'm gathering here is that they couldn't prove that they had heard the song.
That's crazy.
Let's see. This is like a whole thing.
What it looks like to me is that they found more examples of where that cadence
right. Well,
and descending
it says at the
chord.
last here, he goes, Led Zeppelin may have borrowed from their influences, but plenty of artists cooperated or co-opted their sound as well. So basically, they couldn't prove that it was that
Enough.
similar. It was enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you see that all the time with artists.
Yeah.
We played one a second ago with Taylor Swift and AWOL Nation.
It's very similar, but it's not enough. But that it's a little bit different because like she uses like very similar like rhythmic patterns and stuff, but it's not the same exact bass line. It's like the same key, but there's not enough there that is the same.
Yeah, I mean it's been solidified that you can't copyright like 12-bar blues form.
Right.
Or like a certain chord progression.
Right.
Because all pop songs use use very similar chord structures.
Yeah, that's tough.
So it's very hard to...
I think that might be the fine line right there because it's both acoustic guitar.
Real close.
The same chords.
Yep.
But...
Same style.
Same kind of style, same tempo, same strumming.
But it's only that very beginning part that's very similar.
Yeah, and then they move to a new chord, don't they?
They go, it's a different type of track, but...
Yeah.
I think what they found was there wasn't enough there to justify that they had robbed the whole song.
Now, it's Blurred Lines.
Oh yeah.
Versus Robin Thicke versus Marvin Gaye, because that one's very wrong. That one got ruled in favor of Marvin Gaye there. Because all that he got sued on was stealing the vibe of Marvin Gaye's songs. It's not even copyright. It's just that he was very much an inspiration. All right, Blurred Lines.
Let's see, and oh, Gotta Give It Up. So let me just search the two.
Blurred Lines and Gotta Give It Up. Yeah, played that. All right, now pull up. Is it part 1 or part 2? Oh, who knows? I'm gonna say it's that one.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they sound similar, but it's not the same bass line.
Same vibe, for
It's
sure.
the same, yeah, very much inspired by this song. But it's not the same song.
No.
It's a different melody line. They both do falsetto. This is like, have you seen Conan? On his show, they do, so there used to be the game show, like, Name That Tune or whatever.
So, Marvin Gaye won that one.
Which is crazy. And then I think they're trying to take it back to trial because
Gaye's children sued Thicke and Williams, saying the duo's song infringed copyright.
$7.3 million
Yep.
to Marvin Gaye's family.
Yep. No.
LOL. Ad blocker. Keep scrolling. Nope. Yeah, just get out of this page.
What the hell?
Hate these dumb articles.
Anyway.
Anyway,
Wild.
have you seen on Conan O'Brien's show? He does like a Name That Tune type of ripoff of a game. It's hilarious. So this is a great little joke on copyright.
Mm-hmm.
One, he's stealing the idea of a game show, Name That Tune,
Right.
but it's Name That Tune that kind of sounds like a certain song.
Oh.
But it's like, name what this song sounds like. But we could prove in a court of law that it is definitely not. So they play these melodies and like bass lines that are super similar to whatever pop tunes are out or very popular songs. And then they're like, you're right, it does sound like, Marvin Gaye's
Right.
Let's Get It On, but we can definitely prove in court that it is not. So let's get that out of the way.
Yeah. Well, so we have a mutual friend, and we met through Bradley's name's David Wesley. He did song arranging for Family Guy, the show Family Guy. A couple other. He lives in L.A. But when we go out and visit him, or when we did through Bradley, he would show us. I don't know if you were there for that, but one time he was like, "Yeah, so this studio came to me and they're like, we want something that sounds like the Harry Potter theme." Did you play this one?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So he goes, all right. So he wrote this tune, no joke, is like 2 or 3 notes off of the Harry Potter theme. It sounds really goddamn close.
Yeah. But he's just like,
but it's not.
Yeah.
He didn't get, they cleared it. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's all it takes.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's tough, but basically, here's the lesson. If you are going out and deliberately stealing people's music, shame on you.
Right. If you're going to use a sample or
collect ideas, yeah, sampling is fine. Just don't
at least pay for the songs that you're going to use.
Right, be fair.
Yeah.
Treat other people with respect. There's not that many people in the system, so
no.
If you screw someone over, you're probably going to get screwed over later.
Yep.
Karma's real easy to come back, especially in the music biz. So go through it fairly.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll probably, like we said last week, dive into more copyright law sometime in the future.
In like very specifics of like how far you can go.
As we refresh ourselves on that.
I think it's like 2. You have to do more than 2 bars is what I remember. But again, very much rusty on the specifics.
We may have a guest. in eventually
Yeah, that'd be a
to
good
talk
idea.
about that.
Good old friend.
Good old friend Carl Anderson, possibly.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that wraps it up for that discussion.
Yeah.
But something else we want to talk about is getting a job in the music industry. Like,
Mhm.
not necessarily as an artist, but like as a music industry professional, even a manager, publisher, record label person,
Right.
in
Not everybody wants
sales,
to be
whatever.
an artist.
Whatever you want to do in the music industry, how do you approach like being successful in your career?
Right.
Even though both of us are pretty early in our careers. I mean,
Right.
yeah. Um,
If I have any
Joe
career
doesn't
at
even work
all.
in the music industry professionally at the moment.
Mm-mm.
But
That's a choice thing though.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, so what a lot of people will tell you is that you should look, I mean, especially like if you're in high school or whatever and you're thinking about doing something in the music industry, people are going to say, oh, you need to look for a college to go to, music business program or music industry program or production program or whatever it may be. And Joe and I have pretty strong feelings about this. We've talked about this a lot just outside of anything else. Like, it is definitely good to go to college, but
Well,
it's not always a necessity.
It's not.
And we'll explain it to you why. But I mean, and going to college can definitely lead to certain things, but
let's be fair.
Yeah.
Okay. We both went to Bradley, and think of how many connections we built off of that program.
right.
All
That's
right?
what I'm getting at.
Right. And also think about the opportunities that you were given to advance technically, especially in sound engineering,
It's true.
right?
It's true.
Now, that is a pretty quick way, albeit expensive,
Yeah.
to get a jump on those skills. Now, you could go and kind of piece things together, like online, I guess, or just going out and doing it.
Right.
You know, just getting in there and just trying to brush up with people. I would say it's a lot harder. And if you're going to go that route, that's fine. But, like, you can't just go out and do it. That takes a lot of work. If
It's
not,
true.
and more time, probably. It
Yeah.
probably takes more time and more work than going to school. But it doesn't cost you nearly as much. So there's definitely pros and cons.
That's true.
Either way.
Well, and so here's the big thing with getting a job in this industry is that it's
You
all
need
about your
experience.
experience.
Yeah.
It's all about what you have done, who you know. People have asked me to take my GPA, and some people have said, hey, you don't even need to put your education on your resume.
We
I mean,
want to know what you've done.
Right. People will say, well, we're more interested in what positions you have held and how well you worked in that position.
Right.
Right? So it's all about that. Now, granted, like he was saying, by going to college, you kind of get a good, quick jump start on experience because they will put you in an environment that you can work on projects with other people. You can get connections with local industry professionals and other things. But because it is most important to get experience, you can do that as well outside of college.
Right.
Right.
Now, I guess, okay. So, if you're going to school, this gives you a leg up in knowledge of your field.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can't just go to school. You need to have a mindset to actually learn, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, when I was in high school, you just breeze right through it and you never
Yeah.
paid attention to
Right.
one thing.
Right.
Now, when I got to college, like, I really learned how to work hard and, maintain a lot of, I'd say, like, I wore a lot of different hats, let's
Yep.
say, working jobs, trying to be a musician and a college student all at the same time, and, have family, girlfriend,
Right.
it's a lot of stuff. So, and that helps a lot in any industry, like not just the music industry,
How to
because
balance everything.
music industry is very much like you got to do it a little bit independently for a while. You need to go out there and get the work done. I mean, it's so generic, and like when you're starting off, this is the worst advice that you can give or that you can receive when you're like, what do I need to do? You really just need to go out there, do your research, figure out who's putting on the shows in town, figure out who's managing sound, who books the gigs, whatever. Hit those people up, and they'll talk to you. Just hit them up and see what you can do for them. You might have to do some bum work for a little bit, but that's any job anywhere.
Right.
You're going to start at the very bottom. No one hires outside or at college level for... Okay, so there is an illusion with college, and this may have been true back in the 80s, but it's not anymore. If you go to college, it seems like it kind of guarantees you a higher, like a
higher
more
status job.
Right, yeah. That's not true anymore. Now you have the knowledge to maybe work up to that. You have some base, you have like a little base level there, but even nowadays, even for like an office job, you still need experience to get up.
Right.
But
Because back in the day, not everyone went to college. So when you went to college, it was like, oh man, this guy knows what he's talking about. We're gonna hire him like that.
Right.
But nowadays,
everyone goes to college.
I mean, pretty much everyone goes to college.
Right.
So you
It's
have
a huge
to find
majority.
Right. You have to find some way to differentiate yourself.
Right.
And that
So what do you have on top of education? You need experience. That's all that.
and good references.
And so yeah, good references work, but even so, that comes with going out and getting experience.
Right.
So if you go out and do the work, and let's say you're working with like Jay Goldberg and them, if they notice that you do great work with them, they're going to be a great reference for you.
Right.
You can't just like say they know who I am. You need to go prove yourself that you're worth referencing and that they'll actually have something to say. Now, it develops work ethic, and it helps you kind of develop that base level of knowledge and experience that you need to succeed in the music industry. So if you want to be a songwriter, start writing songs. And
if you want to be a sound engineer, go out and just ask around.
Yeah. How'd you start?
Well, in high school, I just kind of was like, I went to our choir director because the tech room was in the choir rehearsal room.
Right.
And I was like, hey, I'm just going to like come in here and play around with this stuff. And he was like, okay. So I kind of like just started playing around with it. I read a couple of books on it, went to YouTube. But then in college, I was like, one of the first things I started doing was the JC and the Redemption Band.
Yeah.
And I went to the band leader and I was like, hey, I do some mixing.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I come and
even
I'd love
even before that. So right there, you have experience, right?
Right.
And you showed them that you had experience, right?
Right.
Now, when you started, weren't you just like doing it for like friends' bands?
Yeah, in high school.
Right. So just right there, you get that experience. That, and even if you're terrible at it,
Oh, yeah, I didn't
you
know what I
get
was
it out
doing.
of the way. There's a rule with like songwriting is you do 300 hours of songs, of like writing songs. That's basically like, that's kind of like the pros like rule of thumb.
300 hours?
I think so.
Oh.
It's like you spend 300 hours writing songs, and like even clock it down.
Right.
Like spend a year writing songs, like an hour every day. Get all those good ideas and bad ideas out.
Yep.
And you figure out through experience how to write a song. So you write the songs, you take them out, you see if people like them or not, you figure out what's good or bad, and then you move on from there. Or you go back listening to it and you're like, that sucked,
Yep.
you can figure out how to develop from there because you have the experience of, what was bad. I mean, that's just how it works. But you just started playing around with it, and you got friends to help you out.
Mm-hmm.
Great start.
Yep.
And then you started moving when you got to college with JC and Redemption.
Right.
Right.
And then with Jay Goldberg events and all that. But yeah, I mean, I just went to them and said, hey, like, I remember, actually came up on my Facebook news feed as a memory the other day.
Of how
It was
long
like
ago?
4 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
However long I've been doing it for them. 5 years ago, maybe now. I remember like they were playing at the Field House, and I was like, yeah, I do some mixing. Like, you guys don't have a sound guy. Do you mind if I just like kind of help out while you're playing your show? And it wasn't much to it. It was just like basically making sure the vocals can be heard in that room because that room's so small.
Right.
And they're like, I mean,
And
what do they have to lose? They're
Not
like,
any good like soundproofing. or
yeah,
anything.
right.
Like,
But I
it's
mean,
a-
what
yeah.
what did they have to lose? Some kid. They're like, sure, why not?
Right.
Might as well. And I remember one of the guys stepped out front during it, and they're like, that sounds really nice.
Right.
And so they just called me up the next gig. I was like, sure. For the first like 3 or 4 gigs, they didn't pay me. But then
Right.
after that, they're like, yeah, we'll hire you on. So I mean, that's how you get it.
Okay, so let's go into that
Sure.
because I think that's a lot of people's problem when they're starting
Oh.
out
Yeah.
is how do you
How do you make
transition
money?
from because
Yeah.
it's a good idea to do things for free or at least for very cheap
Right.
when you're starting out.
Right.
Be like, $10, I'll do it for you and I'll just try it out. All I just need experience.
Yeah. Once you
Um,
feel that,
You are worthy of charging.
yeah,
Go for it.
yeah,
And
know your value.
I think, yeah, exactly. It's know your value. If you're confident in your skills, then charge what you think people would pay you for, and
Ask
then,
around.
right. And don't overprice yourself
No,
either starting
please
off. That they're not going to hire you.
Right.
So really this kind of goes into like a little bit of negotiating, but it's kind of negotiating with yourself as like what price are you worthy of essentially.
Right.
But all you got to do is just muster up the courage and just say, hey, I'm going to start charging now.
Yeah.
It's only going to be this, but I'm going to start charging
Right.
from now on
Yep.
because I'm going to, people understand it's your work. That's what you're doing. But you got to build up the experience to let people know that you're
Worth that.
worth that. Exactly.
But this rings true to any aspect of the music industry. Like, it's all about experience. So I mean, if you want to go into show management, like figure out who's booking the shows around, and just be like, hey, I'm going to college. I'm an industry professional. I'm just trying to get my foot in the door. And I mean, they're gonna help you out. They were in your shoes at one point, and ask them if you could take them out to lunch. Like, just go sit down over a cup of coffee or lunch or whatever and just talk about it.
Yeah.
Just like pick their brain. I feel like this industry especially is built, I think,
on those
on
types of
personal
connections, yeah.
relationships rather than professional relationships, more so than any other industry, I feel like.
Right. And if anything, your professional relationship will lead into a personal relationship.
But I think it's the other way around a lot of
think?
the time.
Okay.
In this industry, especially because it's so small.
But like even I guess what I'm trying to say is like even if you started out professionally,
yes.
it's like it's not going to stay that way.
No.
It's going to be more personal after that.
Right.
So I mean that's a big reason why people say, treat people with respect, especially in showbiz,
Right.
because people take things very personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and another way to do that, especially in college, is because what they do is they basically compress time frame for you in like getting experience. They compress it down to 2 or 4 years.
Right.
There'll be opportunities for like internships and things. Do them. Do
Yeah.
internships because that gets your
Right.
foot in the door. Now, you have to allow that to lead you to a job, because if you do a bunch of internships and then not actually have a paying job after college, no one's going to hire you. Really.
Yeah, I mean,
They don't, just because you have an internship does not mean you're going to get a job.
it does help with the experience.
For sure.
Like if you can put all that experience on your resume,
Mhm.
that you did a bunch of internships and
Maybe
whatever.
you like went out there and got them yourself. Like no one just like, hey, take this internship.
right,
You know.
just like at least be able to explain it.
Mhm.
What looks bad is that you've done a lot of different jobs and no one wanted you afterwards.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Do good work. Work hard while you're doing that internship. Create personal relationships with those people. That way, they can give you a reference.
right. And I guess what would be a good the best case scenario with internships is, you know, you're working for free, you get the experience, but you take an internship and then you do that same internship again, like they wanted you back.
Mm-hmm.
So like, let's say you're putting that on your resume, it shows that they wanted you back, they want you to keep working there.
Right.
And or the other way is that they wanted to move you to a new area, like a new department.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to keep you around and you wanted to
Grow.
get more experience in other areas, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
And a lot of the time, that can,
Right.
you know, if you do good work and they ask you back, that can lead to a job with
right.
them.
But if it wouldn't look as good as having a bunch of internships with a bunch of different companies, because a hiring manager doesn't know who you are. They're probably going to interpret that as no one wanted this kid. So he kept moving from business to business, you know?
Yeah, it could be one
That's
aspect of it. Yeah,
that's a quick interpretation, I would say.
for sure.
But unless you're able to explain why you jumped, you know, around, then that's fine.
Right.
Just be able to explain that.
Right.
But in this industry, experience is definitely valued more than education.
For sure.
Right.
But education can get you that experience.
Right, and get you a start in the experience. But let's say, like, again, when someone's looking at hiring prospects,
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at a bunch of college grads, let's say.
Right.
They all have the same amount of education, and they also have the same amount of experience because the college provided them the same amount of experience to everyone, because
Right.
that was in their rubric, you know?
Yep.
So it's your obligation as a student trying to make it in the industry is, you know, survival of the fittest. You need to be well more equipped than your competition.
Yep.
So go out and get the experience and
Know your stuff.
you know, hone in your skills, find ways to enhance your skills better than the rest and get more experience than the rest.
Right.
That's just how it goes.
Well, yeah, work hard.
Right. Work hard.
Mm-hmm. That's what you can do.
Right.
Mhm.
And even so, it's not like you totally fail. Like if there's
No.
not like a finish line, you know, you
No.
can do it like whenever.
Mhm.
Like you graduated, and I mean, you had to do internships.
Yeah, I did 2 internships.
Right.
One with Jay Goldberg Events and one with Chicago Recording Company.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was a good one.
And then I got hired on. I mean, so the production company that worked with Jay Goldberg hired me on. I'm still technically like on their payroll.
But like
It's
work
like
for
as a
hire
contract.
kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
But that got you started,
Right.
like with some connections right there, and then
I know almost all the heavy hitters in town.
right.
Mm-hmm.
But like you starting off with the music production biz, was you just using your experience and just going out and
Right.
hitting people up and just
Right.
trying to get it done.
Right. Now, another thing is, and we've talked about this before when we talked about like recording your songs or songwriting or whatever, you're gonna fail multiple
time.
times,
And you should
a couple of
get
times.
it out of the way.
Yeah.
That's why they say that 300-hour thing for songwriting, because
Yeah.
it's like you're bound
Well,
to write bad songs.
you're gonna
flush
be
it
in
out
an
of your
environment,
system.
and I remember this very vividly. I don't think I've ever told you this story.
I don't know.
Okay, I was working when 105.7 The X had their, what do they do? The Snowball, or they do
No, CT does the snowball. They do the I don't even know.
the
what
Nutcracker.
Nutcracker.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. They do the Nutcracker, and it was at Expo Gardens here in Peoria,
Yeah.
and it was Chevelle when Chevelle played
How
there.
long ago was that? Was that like 2 years ago?
Maybe 3 now.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was hired on to help out with the production team for that. And I showed up early, like I always do, and like, you know, I'm ready to work, and but there was a couple of times where I didn't know, like the touring production guys asked me a couple questions I didn't know the answers to. and I looked bad. I looked terrible.
Yeah.
Right? Because I didn't know the answers. And I had to go ask and work around. And you know, when you're in a professional environment like that,
People are depending on you.
yes, they are. So I didn't know the answers to them. And then they allowed me to mix the opening band. It was like CT's house band or whatever it was,
Right.
like the 30-minute set, whatever it was. It was terrible. It was one of the worst shows I've ever mixed.
Really?
It was awful.
Yeah.
I
Nice.
couldn't get the sound right. Like the sound check was good. I was happy with the sound check, but then the show, like I couldn't get it tuned in right. And I've actually had someone I knew that was there comment to me. He goes, "Yeah, I didn't sound like you knew what you were doing." Yeah, no, like pretty much, you know. And then as we were loading out, I heard a couple of the production guys say something about like an amateur or whatever. It wasn't directed at me, but sure they were talking about my performance. I mean, that's just how it goes.
Right.
It was a terrible day
Yeah.
for me, but you're gonna have that.
Right. Just
You're gonna do it. So
You keep going. You know.
you keep at it, right? And it just, I mean, it drives you to work harder. So
Right.
keep that in mind.
And
as
some
your
people
experience.
have an attitude where, I'm not gonna name names. Some people have an attitude that it's make or break. You either can do it right away or you can't, and then your career is ruined. You kind of know what I'm saying here.
I think so.
Yeah.
We'll chat about it later.
So that's not true. It's only
No.
true in very extreme circumstances.
Yep.
And if someone has an attitude that they never ever want to work with you again, especially when you're a young kid, and clearly you don't have the level of experience as like a 40-year-old mixing engineer.
Yeah.
If you're 40 years old and you can't, and you're terrible, then maybe you're probably not going to work for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like, I mean, maybe you could figure it out, but you don't have that much time. Like, if you're hiring a young person,
Yep.
expect to not, you know,
You gotta
have some leniency.
Yeah, I mean, they people should understand that. I mean, especially the younger people make mistakes.
Right. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is if someone is like, you're finished, kid, we'll never see you ever again, you probably don't want to work with that person anyway. They're kind of a D-bag. So
Yeah.
man,
We'll chat about that.
big man.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
you know, and it's important as you're looking for jobs. You know, the companies are gonna kind of feel you out. Like, are you a good fit? Do you know what you're talking about? All that stuff. You can do the same for that company as well. I mean, this is just general knowledge as you're applying for any job, whether
Right.
it be in the music industry or not. But make sure you get in an environment that you feel successful in.
Right.
Mhm.
Cool.
Cool.
So this episode started out really quiet while we were trying to brush up on copyright, and
It
then
did.
like we really started rolling once we like switched the topic.
We
there.
did.
We weren't ready for the copyright.
No,
uh,
we will be ready for the copyright.
yeah.
One episode here coming up shortly, probably.
I still want to do the like the song making.
Yeah, we need to
someday.
do that.
That'd be fun.
We should actually work
It's
on that
warming up.
before.
It's gonna chill down again.
Yeah, I know.
Because the day that we were gonna do it was like negative like 15 or something
Yeah.
that day or something. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was insane. And neither one of us had prepared anything.
Well, I wasn't expecting to.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't planning on doing it. I was gonna come up with something like on the fly.
On the spot.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, especially
is.
when you get two different brains like throwing in
Ideas.
Once you get someone else's mind on it, you can bounce things off so easily.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
We should do that. And
Yeah.
then when we do that, we'll probably do a Facebook Live video.
Yeah, we gotta figure out the
That way you
actual
can kind
mechanics of
of
that.
see what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll go into that.
Okay. We're at 45 minutes. Want to
That's-
call it a week?
Yeah. Let's call it a
Awesome.
week.
Thanks. Oh, shit. My microphone there. That wraps it up for episode 8. Thanks everyone for listening.
Bye bye.